The U.S. Army discharged a man because he said he was drunk on duty for roll call. This man claimed that he was drugged. He was not drunk. And he had to fight like heck to clear his name. This man survived something unbelievable out here at this location where I'm at 18 years earlier. Right here, near the peach orchard in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. The monument to his unit and the Excelsior Brigade is just right over there. He commanded Buffalo soldiers. He fought out west. He moved his entire family to a location where his wife would die. And he took a long time to clear his name. But who was this soldier exactly? Where was he from? What did he do here at Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, that was so extremely important to the fight right here across this field against the Mississippians and William Barksdale? We're going to tell you that story today, so hang tight. Welcome back to History with Waffles. We've got one heck of a story right here near the peach orchard. The position that I'm in right now is where the 70th New York is going to be deployed at 1 o'clock in the afternoon on July 2nd of 1863. The peach orchard that everybody stops at is right up here on the hill, but the peach orchard realistically covers a big portion of this field. The Sharpshooters farm is across the road, but what's important about this position isn't the peach orchard of the Sharpshooters farm, or even Dan Sickles and his blunderous move. What's important is those Mississippians that are going to come across that road and make life a living hell for a man named Hugo. Now, to better tell the story of the Battle of the Peach Orchard to you, I've got to take you to one of my favorite places out here on the battlefield, where I like to take people and kind of explain how we end up on the peach orchard. Directly behind me here, this is a little round top. And I'm cutting off into a grassy area here where there's a bit of a hill, and this is going to be a key moment in time in the history of Gettysburg. Up here on this hill, in this area, this vicinity, Dan Sickles is supposed to be placed and anchored out here. His men are positioned in this location, and he's told that this is where this flank, this whole area is going to be for his soldiers. Now, according to him, he came out here, looked at the location, and realized that forward of where he's standing right here, right now, there's a place that's sticking further out that has a vantage point, a high ground, if you will. And that high ground is more advantageous for his artillery. And he wants to get his soldiers over there to the high ground. Well, I think it's best if I flip this camera around and show you what I'm looking at. So here we are on that rocky ridge. Little round top over here. Directly off to my front is going to be the area where Devil's Den, Slaughter Pen, Triangular Field, Hawks Ridge, then the wheat field out here. But off in that direction, way out there, you can't make it out right now. During the winter, you can see it. But the peach orchard's going to be over there. Dan Sickles' men are supposed to be right here. This is Cemetery Ridge going down through here, and he can get a line of sight all the way down towards Cemetery Hill. His men are supposed to be straight out. Instead, he forward deploys way out here and gets his men off at an angle over at the peach orchard. And then his men angle back here towards the wheat field location. This creates that salient that allows his men to be so far out there that whenever they make that first initial contact, the Confederates kind of thrown off guard by it, and they're not real sure what to do. But they realize that they have to deploy their men in a hurry and start to attack because they've been found out. So realistically, Dan Sickles might have accidentally brought on a general engagement out there at the peach orchard that potentially could have saved this end of the line. That's what one person argues, or one group of people argue. The other group of people argue that he disobeyed lawful orders from General George Meade. And General George Meade certainly wasn't happy with him and the position that he left the army in, with the gap in between his lines and the salient out there at the peach orchard. Now imagine that. You're already a controversial figure in the United States military as a senator who has already been accused of murder at one point in time, but you pled insanity, right? So here's a person who temporarily was insane enough to kill somebody, who's now in charge of an entire group of men in the army, who's supposed to have the wherewithal and the ability to lead them into combat and make right decisions, good decisions. And he comes out here and he takes liberty with his orders, forward deploys his men out there on the peach orchard and creates all kinds of havoc. That havoc works out in his favor. But as old General Dan Sickles once said, he didn't need a monument on this field. This field was his monument. Hugo's first real foray into the military would be in 1856 when he was with the Lafayette Light Guard. And this is in Michigan. He's a New York native that's relocated to Michigan, and he's become a very successful carriage maker out there. Then the bombardment of Fort Sumter changes everything. He immediately rushes his 100 men and decides to enlist them. And every one of them enlist, and he notifies the state authorities. And then silence. Nothing. They've said absolutely nothing to the man about his men, gathering them, or getting them off to war. And that's when things change. And he reaches out to Dan Sickles. So I'm walking down towards a portion of the battlefield now that the first time you come out here, you're probably going to end up missing it. If you're driving around with one of those audio tours in your car, you're definitely going to miss it. It's called Berdan Lane or Berdan Avenue out here. At this location is where the Berdan Sharpshooters end up making initial contact with Longstreet's men out here, who were essentially trying to sneak by and find the flank of the Union Army. When they make the contact out here, they put up one stiff resistance for being such a small group of soldiers fighting from tree to tree. But this is what kicks off that fight. It's going to happen back here across those fields towards the peach orchard. Thanks to the probing over here, Longstreet and his officers know it's only a matter of time. The jig is up, and they're going to have to put men into action and deploy quickly. Realizing that Senator Dan Sickles is raising men in New York, his men, Hugo's men, decide to travel to New York. And they end up mustering in as Company C of the 70th New York. That's how they end up in the 70th New York. And they end up traveling here to Gettysburg as a result of that. This unit would be a composite unit. It would have men from Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Massachusetts, and Hugo's men attached to it. And they would go on to fight at the Peninsula Campaign. There at the Peninsula Campaign in Yorktown, Hugo ends up receiving a massive wound, if you will, from a 9-inch ordnance shell that had been fired so close to his head that the concussion blasted his eardrum to the point to where he lost all hearing in his left side, if I'm not mistaken. It's pretty hard to recover from something like that, but Hugo goes on to earn himself promotion from captain to major, and he does so fighting in battles like Fredericksburg and Chancellorsville, and he continues to fight all the way up here to Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. William H. Hugo, the New York native that we're talking about, was a major out here with the 70th New York at this location where I'm at right now. I'm just adjacent to this small section or grove of trees that everybody likes to call the Peach Orchard. Realistically, the Peach Orchard was all throughout this area here, and several families lived throughout the area of the Peach Orchard. Hugo has his men up and ready at about 8 a.m. on that second hot day in July 1863, and they're concentrating in this area to get ready for a fight, or just on the other side of where this area is. Minutes start to tick by, then hours start to tick by, and time seems like it is going in slow motion because they're not getting into the fight, and they're not sure why. Eventually, about 1 p.m., he's ordered up and told to bring his men out here to this location. His men get in here and they start to form up with the rest of New York and the other soldiers in and around the Peach Orchard. And then it starts to happen. All across this crazy wide open field here, where you see the New York soldiers there on top of that monument, this field, Hugo would stand right here where I'm at, staring in that direction. And he would see thousands of Mississippi soldiers coming across this field. At least 1,600 or more. And those men coming across the field are coming in a fury at about 4 p.m. in the afternoon. Barksdale has been chomping at the bit all day long, asking for permission to bring his men across these fields. And when they finally come over here, they do exactly what they are expected to do. They slam into the Union soldiers head on. Catch some of them by surprise, and they force those Union soldiers back across this field over here, all the way back towards the bloody run that's out there, Plum Run. But that victory would be short-lived. They would take up a lot of ground over here, and their cannons would actually be placed on that road that's out there in front of the Peach Orchard, which is a lot of territory for those Confederates to win. Hugo is standing here fighting, and almost immediately while he's out here fighting, one of those Confederate bullets reach up and hit him in the hip. Hugo goes down. He's wounded real bad. His men drag him further past the field here, right off in the distance, but he's still in place. And they're telling him that he needs to go back and get medical attention, needs to get help. He refuses to leave this field. And in his words, he wanted to know that they were able to repulse the rebels here on this field before he would retire from the field of battle. Eventually, that happens. They repulse him, move him back across these fields, and Hugo would go seek medical help. Now, when I'm walking these fields, I like to find the flank markers of the units to know positioning and how far apart they were. I'm standing in the position of the 73rd New York right now. The Excelsior monument's just over my shoulder, and it has 70th, 71st, 72nd, and the 73rd on it, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm going to continue to walk down this line here to see where all of these flank markers are located, and hopefully we can find something for the 70th. So here we are. We've made it to the marker for the 70th New York out here on this field. And if you just look out across this field, the position that these guys are in, like, you're not seeing a whole lot in front of you. It's a hill. It's a ridge line here at the Peach Orchard. And the Confederate soldiers are going to come up over that ridge line eventually and into this position. They're going to attack. These guys are kind of sitting here like lame ducks. They are standing by, providing fire and cover for the soldiers that are forward deployed out in front of them. Eventually, these lines are going to get confused and stacked together, and people like Hugo are going to get wounded in the process. But thankfully for our soldier here, Hugo, the story we're telling today, it doesn't completely end sad. Hugo survives this battle, and he moves on to another career. So our soldier today decides he wants to continue to make a career of it in the United States Army. And he was trying to enlist again and become an officer with the USCT. He saw an opportunity there, but it didn't happen. Eventually, in 1866, he joins the United States Regular Army after the war's over, and he ends up fighting with the Buffalo Soldiers out west for an extended period of time with the 25th Infantry and the 9th Cavalry. Between the years of 1877 and 1880, he's actually deployed to Fort Bayard or Bayard, and his family's out there with him. And at some point in time, his wife actually dies out there at that fort, probably of a sickness. In 1881, his career is going to come to an end. He reports to a roll call, and he appears intoxicated. And even though he's an officer that has a distinguished career in the American Civil War and has done everything he can to fight with the Buffalo Soldiers and served his country proud, they decide to discharge him from the military and end his career abruptly, stating that he was drunk on duty. He tried to explain himself. He tells his officers that are in charge at his courts-martial that he had been drugged. He thought that maybe something had been put in his drink, that he had been intoxicated by accident, many different things. And the other soldiers that were around him actually said that they concurred with his statement, that the medications that he was on possibly caused this drugged effect. Whether it was intentionally drugging or he took medications that caused him to appear to be stumbling and foolish at roll call, no one will really ever know except for him. But many, many years later, it must have been the truth, because U.S. Army clears his record and gives him a pension. Here in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, there's a lot of stories like that about soldiers, officers, men, Confederate soldiers and Union soldiers, and I try to do a good job of representing everybody out here on these fields. This position at the Peach Orchard was a tenuous position at best. It was a terrible day for the soldiers that were forward deployed out here, and a lot of men were lost by being out here at this salient, protecting the position that Dan Sickles put them in. Hugo was one of those casualties. Hugo goes on to live the rest of his life in another location and not buried in the ground right here in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. So I guess with that, he can consider himself lucky. Well, it's been a lot of fun taking you out here to Gettysburg yet again and covering another story that I'm not so sure has been covered on YouTube just yet. Hope to see you guys out there on those fields. Come on back next Saturday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. And if you like this video and the others that I've been putting out there, do me a favor. Share the video with others so that they can get the education that they deserve to have, or the entertainment for that matter. And hit that like button, that thumbs up. Give us some hype points. It's absolutely free to do it. Doesn't cost you a thing. If you do that, you can consider yourself a member of the Waffle Squad for helping me out there and promoting these videos and helping this channel grow. I appreciate everything. Thanks for all you do. Until next time, this is History with Waffles.